evening, I'm Jorino Saunders, and this is your JCN Evening News. Thanks for joining us. The Minister of State for the Public Service, Pia Glover-Roll, making some strong accusations against finance and accounting officers in the public service sector. Minister Glover-Roll alleging that finance officers adjusted their salaries to accommodate higher pay rates after receiving approval of which the public service had no vision of. She says this resulted in an overpayment of $4 million to employees, which was revealed after an internal financial audit was conducted some weeks ago. The state minister says the normal government procedure did not occur, resulting in the steep overpayment.
Normal government procedure in terms of adjusting the pay scales was not observed. This resulted in an overpayment of $4 million plus by that same scale of employees, where the system would have been adjusted in their favor without the proper government procedures.
The state minister remained confident that the government is working towards the return of the finances lost. She adds that the policy must be upheld and it is an active process that is without a doubt happening.
The normal policy of overpayment is recovery. So I'll say that the audit has revealed some gaps in terms of controls, and the policy is to recover. We have found some things as a result of the audit that were done wrong, and I'm sure consequences will follow.
Meanwhile, members of the Bahamas Public Service Union gathered outside the office of the Prime Minister on Tuesday following those comments made by Minister Pia Glover-Roll, who suggested that the normal government procedure in terms of adjusting the pay scale was not observed. Bahamas Public Union members, or Bahamas Public Service Union President Kingsley Ferguson, explained why the protest took place.
We are actually here today in response to some egregious comments made by the Minister of State for the Public Service, the Honorable Pia Glover-Roll, who alleged that there were some finance and accounting officers who approved payments and made payments to themselves to the tune of some $4 million. These are the persons who have responsibility for the public purse. We want to encourage the minister, prior to coming into the media, to properly apprise herself of the facts relative to what is happening, so that she can speak accurately to them, because her statements today were inaccurate. These individuals standing behind us, the finance and accounting officers, they're indeed creatures of instructions, and so they cannot authorize payments to themselves.
Mr. Ferguson says Mrs. Glover-Roll based her comments on an audit that the union has not seen. Meanwhile, close to 30 financial and accounting officers vehemently rejected Mrs. Glover-Roll's assertion. They also provided proof that their pay raises were done properly, and they are now demanding an apology from Mrs. Glover-Roll. The financial officer, Latovia Roma, expressed their frustration.
It's really upsetting. It's egregious, because we do not pay ourselves. Like the president said, we are in possession of an approval letter from the former permanent secretary of the public service, Mrs. Donella Bodie, which quotes a cabinet conclusion number, which means that approval was given by the cabinet of the Bahamas, which gave the public treasury authority to increase our salaries. We don't pay ourselves. Okay, so her statement was actually calling us thieves in the public domain, and we demand a public apology. Yes.
Mr. Ferguson says the union will reveal what their next course of action will be following the presentation of the 2022-2023 budget, which is expected to be presented in the House of Assembly on Wednesday. Before heading into Tuesday's cabinet meeting, the Minister of State for the Public Service, Pia Glover-Roll, was initially responding to claims made by the president of the BPSU, Kingsley Ferguson, that the government had been giving unions the runaround since taking office. And as a result, he called an emergency meeting with the public service unions to decide a course of action to have the government address a number of outstanding matters. Minister Glover-Roll disagreed and said the government has actively been meeting with the unions and has been constantly in contact with the unions, looking to assist in resolving a number of matters. She said it would be unfortunate if the unions were to resort to industrial action.
That would be very unfortunate, because in the last 4.5 years, a lot of these union leaders have sat with their fingers on their lips and have not had anything thing to say. Have not had any interaction with the government because the government previous didn't allow that. In the last 8.5 months, we've met with, spoken with, communicated with union presidents across the country via phone, in-person meetings, messages, and emails. So the dialogue is happening. We're back at the table in terms of our labor relations unit, bringing the industrial relation agreements back to the table finally. It's been a long time coming for that. The government is looking to negotiate to see where we can assist these unions in closing off matters. Many of the agreements are expired, so there's a lot of work to be done.
Mrs. Glover-Roll also went on to call the claims of unions being out of the loop of the progression of the resolutions to a number of outstanding matters as being disingenuous, as meetings with a number of unions have been taking place since the Labor Relations Unit was composed in October of 2021. She also shared that some government workers that are members of the Public Service Union feel bothered by the remarks by Mr. Ferguson.
Public servants are doing the work that are our employees and the union's members to ameliorate long-standing matters that haven't been touched in years. They're working long hours and long weeks to ensure that public service matters across the country, these same public servants, especially those in the Ministry of Public Service, are working. So they are bothered when they hear persons that represent them say nothing is happening, because they're putting in the work. I also think it's unreasonable because we have processed hundreds of matters in the last 8 months. There are thousands of matters to be ameliorated. We are working on them.
The minister ended her response by expressing that her commitment is to staying focused and doing the work needed to solve the many matters outstanding in the public service sector. As the Davis administration also referred to as the New Day government readies itself for its first budget presentation on Wednesday, Economic Affairs Minister Senator Michael Halkitis gives a sneak peek into the specifics of the budget. Speaking with members of the press just ahead of this morning's weekly cabinet meeting, Minister Halkitis reveals that this year's budget will have a strong focus on key areas of sustainability, including home ownership, small business development, and renewable energy.
Of course, this is the first full budget of this administration, and you can expect to see us bringing some relief to the public. You can expect to see some incentives to promote things like home ownership, investment in business, investment in green energy, etc. Efforts to promote the economy. We are making efforts to ensure that the key, what we call the key priorities of the government are properly financed, talking about education, security, health, etc. And so stay tuned for tomorrow.
This year's budget, 2022-2023, is the Davis administration's first official fiscal communication to the nation and will be presented under the theme, The Way Forward, a Plan for Recovery and Progress. And according to a press release from the Office of the Prime Minister, it will provide Bahamians with a strategic roadmap for the coming year. The Economic Affairs Minister echoes these sentiments as he notes that Bahamians need not fear increased taxation, as this government's plans is to further fuel the country's economic growth and recovery.
Our view is that we need to grow the economy. We are still emerging from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. We are very optimistic and encouraged by the signs that we see coming out of the economy in terms of people being employed. If you look around, the construction that's going on, investment in the country. So we're, in terms of the tourism industry, very strong. And so we're encouraged by that. But we believe that any increase in taxation would tend to work against that recovery.
Though he says he doesn't wish to preempt the Prime Minister, Minister Halkitis does note that the possibility for relief at the cash register and at the gas pumps looks promising. We'll take a break here, and we'll be right back after these commercials.
This segment of the news has been brought to you by Silhouette Boutique Collection.